I am Tiffany Sankary. Welcome to those of you that are friends and colleagues, and those of you who are new to me and my work. And today we're going to be exploring freeing our neck and shoulders through this lens of compassion, ease, and also bringing in some self-touch. And this is an introduction to a 6-week series that is starting next week called Freeing Your Neck and Shoulders, Unwinding the Body Pattern of Anxiety. So last week I focused more in my introductions more on the unwinding the body pattern of anxiety side of things. Today we're starting a little bit more from the freeing your neck and shoulders side of things, with a little bit of weaving in around the unwinding the body pattern of anxiety. And then in the series, we're really going to be bringing those together through Feldenkrais lessons and also through some organic intelligence practices, which I will share a little bit more about later. But I'd like us just to get started, and I'll weave in the ideas and the thinking in the experience. So go ahead and come stand. And take a moment to stand on the ground and notice where your attention goes. So the foundation of what we'll do today and what we'll do in the series is curiosity. So we're not trying to fix or even change, although change will occur on its own, but just this baseline of curiosity, which also you may notice moments when you're not curious. So the spectrum of curiosity from super interested to kind of interested to not interested, and noting that also. So what are you curious about in your experience of standing right now? And how much of your attention would you say is inside of yourself and your sensations, your thoughts, your feelings, and how much of your attention is out into the space that you're in, into your environment? And notice whether there's any movement here as you're standing, any shifting, or you feel stillness. And where are your eyes looking? So without intentionally adding in a layer of instruction around your eyes, just notice where your eyes are looking, where it's easy for you to see, and what it is that you see as you're standing here and noticing where you're looking. And from this place that you are seeing, you can notice whether your gaze is a little bit down or a little bit up or a little bit more to your left or a little bit more to your right. And then from this place that is what we could call your neutral right now, just notice from here, where is it easy to see a little bit around this place. So it could be like a little bit to one side or the other of this place, or a little bit up and down relative to this neutral. So where is it that your eyes easily go from this standing beginning? Notice what you see. Notice what your eyes land on, where they move to, super easily. And if you notice that you sort of stay lingering somewhere, and maybe you might even like space out a little bit or get more into the detail of something or zoom out more, just let naturally what your eyes, let them do what they would like. bringing curiosity. All right. And then before we get on the floor, just do a little tiny movement of the very beginning of turning to look around yourself. So you may already have done this in this last few moments, but if you didn't, go ahead and just see how easy is it for you to turn to the right? What do you see when you turn to your right? How easy is it to turn to your left? And listen to the quality so that you are only moving in the range that's like as light as a feather. And so you listen to that so that you can compare the light as a feather feeling. And then when you go to the other side, what happens when you turn? Is there a difference? Turning to the right and turning to the left that you can sense right now. Okay, and then come on to the ground. And lie on your back to begin with. And you can have your knees bent or your legs long, whatever's comfortable for you. Just make yourself comfortable, adjust yourself. If you get down on the floor and you realize you need a little extra padding, if it's too hard, do that. If you feel like being on the ground is not possible for you, you can also do this lying in a bed. And begin with your eyes open. And just again, take a moment to just be curious about this moment of lying on your back without any agenda, just giving a moment for no agenda, which is just like so rare in my life, although because I do this work, I get to experience this often and I appreciate it. I need these moments of just doing nothing for a minute. And here, notice your attention. If you go more inside of yourself, or if you're aware of your environment and what that kind of ratio is, the balance of attention inward and attention outward. And notice what you see from here, from this perspective, being on the floor. Where do your eyes land? What catches your eye from this place, being on the floor, something on the ceiling, or do you turn your head to look over at something? And then from here, a little bit, roll your head from one side to the other, just gently, and notice what you see and respect the quality of the movement. So you just feel when you turn your head, how easy is it to turn to one side? How easy is it to turn to the other side? And what do you see when you turn? Okay. And then check in for a moment with your feeling, just overall, your emotional quality, your landing here somewhere in the middle of your day. The day has happened, just kind of sensing overall where you're at in this moment in your feeling. Just with compassion, curiosity, not trying to change anything. And then get a sense of your contact with the floor. So notice the way your two shoulders are lying on the floor and compare your sense of one shoulder to the other. One a little more firmly on the floor, one a little more lifted. And I encourage you, as we're shifting more into our internal experience, into these next pieces of the lesson, that you could play, if you like, with having your eyes open, if that feels possible or interesting to you, and kind of sometimes checking in with your environment. And then other times you may feel the impulse to close your eyes and then just listen to that. So you have full freedom to have eyes open or eyes closed as you would like. And then scan down from your shoulders to sense the way that your back is lying on the floor, back of your ribs, lower back, comparing your two sides together. And your legs, how do your legs lie? Are there any differences you can sense between them? And then your arms and hands. How do your arms and hands lie on the floor? Checking in one side and the other. The length of each arm, the contact. And then go ahead and roll over to lie on your left side. And if you have something to put under your head, if that would be nice for you, put something under your head. You can bend your knees. If you don't have something to put under your head and you need something, you can also lay on your left arm. And in this position, lying on your side, notice what you see. Just taking a moment to not do, to undo, to check in with this side of the room, this side of your space. And in the series, we're going to be going a lot more into this practice of orienting to our environment. And the way that I was feeling it today when I was doing this is like every moment that you really sense and experience your environment, you're kind of like dropping pennies in the bank of your well-being, that there's no time wasted in that. This dropping directly into the here and now is just cumulatively supportive. And so anytime during the lesson, you can play with this, just having your eyes open and checking in with what you see and what you hear. All right, so now, very slowly, lift your head to look over your left shoulder. So the shoulder that you're lying on, you're going to find a way to turn to look over the shoulder that you're lying on. So look over your left shoulder and then return back to the middle. And notice when I gave you the instruction, did you do it right away? Did you think about it first? Was it a big effort? So go slowly and maybe even play with imagining the movement first. It's a little bit awkward, right? Like, how do you do that comfortably? So that's part of our task, is to find out how to play with making this comfortable right now. So see, maybe you do this the beginning of it. So how do you organize yourself to turn to look over your left shoulder? So maybe you roll a little bit. Maybe you have too many pads under your head to actually make that possible. Yeah, so someone was saying that it's not possible with the head on the pillow. So maybe for a moment, take your head off, take the pillow out, and then play with this just a few times of looking over your underneath shoulder. How do you do that? Without rolling all the way onto your belly. That's it. Something. Is it possible? How do you do it? What's involved? Okay, and now come back onto your side. You can put the thing under your head again if you'd like. So we're going to play now with a sequence of things that will actually support making this easier without working on this specific movement again for a while. So we're going to leave that. If you need to check in one more time just to like, oh yeah, this is what it was like for me, and then we'll move on. And now bring your right hand to rest somewhere on your right cheek. And just sense your hand on your cheek, the feeling of your hand on your cheek, and you can have your elbow down somewhere near your chest. And then from this place of your hand cozily resting on your cheek, maybe you adjust where it is, just feeling this kind of care shaping of your hand to your face. Roll your head so that you turn yourself so you're facing a little bit more towards the ceiling. So you roll a little bit more in the direction as if you were going to roll to your back, and then you come back onto your side. And go super slowly and really, really listen to this path of ease. So that's what we're searching for in the lesson, in the whole lesson, and in the Feldenkrais method, and in organic intelligence, is this path of ease. So as soon as you feel tightening and efforting, a pushing, that's too much. So it could be a very small movement of rolling, turning, and then returning. And in the returning, notice what comes back. Notice what reorganizes and settles back into the neutral position. And then change where your hand is. So maybe you bring your hand a little higher or a little lower. So you just vary where your hand is. Maybe your hand could be a little bit more over your mouth or more over your eye. And then again, roll a little bit back and just notice how changing the position a little bit of your hand changes the movement. What you sense through your spine, what you feel in your shoulder, the position of your elbow. Mm-hmm. And now bring your right hand to the left side of your face. Mm-hmm. And continue and feel how this changes things. So now when you roll, you turn yourself, there's actually a little bit more movement in your neck, yeah? So there's a different feeling in how your shoulder can move and what happens in your spine. You can play with kind of finding the place on the left side of your face that feels the coziest, that feels comfortable. Maybe it's even more towards your chin or could be higher up towards your temple. And just noticing and appreciating how this different position of your hand changes how you experience the movement. And there's these layers of sweet, caring gesture that are here, yeah, with this like bringing your hand to your face, such a developmentally, like my kids when they fall asleep, I see this little hand on their face. It's so primary, it's so foundational to our early growing. That's it. And now I'm seeing some experimentation, and this is totally an invitation to experiment. So now you can even bring your hand to your forehead and have your elbow facing towards the ceiling and roll your head from this place so that your hand is on your forehead and your fingers are pointing down towards the floor and your elbow is out to the side. And here you can feel it's a really different shaping, right? Your chest opens differently. Your elbow moves in space differently. And anytime you want to rest, rest. Mm-hmm. Actually, everybody rests. Let's take a rest together. And there's this rhythm in awareness through movement lessons where I'm offering the structure of the exploration. And then within that, we rest to give our brains this chance to digest, to assimilate, to integrate. And you can sense into your own timing of, oh yeah, I need to rest now, which is before I tell you. Or if I give a rest to everyone and you're still really curious and want to play, then you continue on um, while others are resting. So you can kind of gauge and sense your own rhythm of your learning, when you're ready to stop, start. Come back onto your side. And yeah, during the rests, you can rest on your side, you can rest on your back in a different position, anything you like. So come back on your same side if you're ready, when you're ready. Bring your right hand to your forehead with your fingers pointing down towards the floor and your elbow towards the ceiling. And again, a few times, roll yourself so that you take your forehead, you take your face towards the ceiling, your elbow comes back, and see where can you let go of effort in your shoulder. So as you come back, the more that you can allow gravity, the more that you can yield to gravity there in the area of your shoulder, and your arm can be soft and your fingers can be soft. The more you include your spine, turning of yourself, and the more that you respect your limitations, so you feel any even sense of stretching, that's too much here. So just staying in this easy range. Notice if the movement travels all the way down to your pelvis. Does it stop before it reaches your pelvis? What do you do with your breathing? Or what does your breathing do with you? Mm-hmm. Okay, come onto your side and pause, put your arm down, and just notice your breathing for a moment. Notice where you sense your breath moves. If your eyes are open, you can notice what you see. If you have felt the impulse to close your eyes, just notice that feeling of your eyes being closed. And bring your attention to the right side of your pelvis and move the right side of your pelvis a little bit forward and a little bit backwards. Just sensing this movement of your right knee sliding relative to your left knee, and that this movement of your pelvis starts to turn your spine, starts to turn you, so that you're a little bit beginning to roll a little bit towards your belly, a little bit beginning to roll towards your back without ever getting anywhere, but just feeling how easy is it to move your pelvis, and which is your preference, to roll forward, to take your pelvis a little forward, or to take your pelvis a little back. And now bring your right hand to your forehead again with your elbow facing towards the ceiling. Roll yourself back, take your pelvis back, and then orient yourself so that you're facing towards the ceiling. And if it's comfortable, stay there. Stay in this twisted position. If it's not so comfortable for you, you can modify this. You can do something different with your legs. You can not be so twisted. And now bring your two hands to your sternum. So your sternum is the bone in the front of your chest. And see if you can find some places where a pair of ribs will meet your sternum. So there's these little notches where your ribs meet your sternum. And you can use the pads of your fingers. And so you're in this twisted position. And then from here, you can find a place where you sense some ribs on either side of the sternum, and then move from this part of your sternum and your ribs, move this area with your fingers a little bit to the right and back to the middle. So very gently, using your touch to just caringly encourage your sternum, a few ribs to move a little bit to the right and then to return to the middle. If it's too much to stay in this twisted position, you can also do this on your back for a while. And then go a little higher or a little lower. So find a different pair of ribs connected to your sternum, and then from here, move a little bit to the right. And so you could start to sense and imagine your sternum is in the front of your chest and your spine is in the back of your chest, and that actually your ribs and your rib cage in the front can move a little bit relative to your spine behind. So your sternum is sliding a little bit to the right while your spine is staying where it is. And you can go a little higher, a little lower, just taking your time. And then come onto your back and rest on your back. And let's continue with this exploration of the sternum, but now just have your knees bent, be on your back, so the demand of the twist kind of gets taken out of the picture. And it's just this exploring along your sternum. So each pair of ribs wraps around from your sternum in front to your spine behind. There are two, generally, floating ribs that come out from your vertebra behind and don't connect to your sternum in front, but the rest of them are connected. So there's this feeling that wherever you land on a pair of ribs, you could imagine that this pair of ribs wraps around all the way to the back. And just play with taking some pairs of ribs to the right. We'll get to the left side later. But go a little higher, a little lower, explore some you haven't felt before, maybe even come up close to the collarbones. And if you're not sure where your sternum is, if you open your hand all the way and then take your pinky finger and put it somewhere near your solar plexus, so the very, very bottom of your sternum, and then you take your thumb and put it in between your collarbones. That's the length of your sternum. And from your thumb to your pinky, you can sense, now with the rest of your fingers, just this whole bone there. Okay, now come back onto the same side, and we'll do this a little bit more here, but if you're like, that it's better for you just to stay on your back, then stay on your back and do this. So you'll move your sternum a little bit. Now this time, so you start out twisted. You turn yourself, so you're on your side, you turn yourself so you're facing towards the ceiling. And then as you're moving your sternum to the right, notice what you do with your head and your eyes. And also, as you're twisted like this, do you need as much stuff under your head as you had when you were lying all the way on your side? Maybe you don't even need anything, or maybe you need less. And so notice what happens in your neck and shoulders and your head and eyes as you do this movement to the right with your sternum, different places. Good. And now take your right arm and bring it over the top of your head to grab somewhere near your left ear. So you're still in this twisted position. Again, if this is too much, you can have your right foot standing on the floor and your knee towards the ceiling. And from here, begin to slide your head to the right. So with your head in your arm, slide your head to the right, which you'll bend in your ribs on the right. And with your left hand, notice what happens to your sternum. So put your left hand on your sternum and you can feel as you slide your head to the right, what's the direction of the movement of your sternum? So your right arm is over the top of your head so that your forearm is resting on the top of your head and your right hand is somewhere near your left ear. And If anything is uncomfortable, do less, modify. If the biggest thing you get out of this whole class is that you took care of yourself the whole time, that would be a huge thing. And so then you can imagine some of it, you can come in and out of the lesson. So here we're not even lifting our heads, we're just sliding the back of your head on the floor, noticing what happens to your sternum. And now switch arms. So bring your left arm over the top of your head, bring your right hand to your sternum, and notice how you take the movement, take your head to the left, and how is this, and what happens to your sternum. So you're in a twisted position, your face is facing towards the ceiling, and you slide the back of your head on the floor. So you stay, you don't turn your head either way. Your head stays facing towards the ceiling, and you're finding some way to move in your spine and your ribs. And you feel, what's the movement of your sternum as you slide your head on the floor this way. You could even feel what happens to your ribs. You can use your right hand to touch your ribs, different places. Okay, let that go, lie on your back. And notice what you are aware of as you rest, as you lie, as you notice. And one last time, come onto your same side. So come onto your left side. And put your right hand on your forehead and roll your face towards the ceiling and see how it is now to twist yourself back like this, if anything is shifting. And then stay with your face towards the ceiling. Bring both arms down along your side and play with sliding one hand a little bit down towards your feet and then your other hand a little bit down towards your feet. And let your head and neck respond in whatever way feels good to you. So it could be sliding the back of your head the way that we did before with the arm, or it could be rolling your head. And what you're looking for is this movement in your spine, movement in your ribs, and this bending in other places besides your neck even. So there's this sense that below your head and neck, you're organizing and moving and waking up your spine and your ribs in the whole situation that feels easy for you. And if any of this is too much, the twisting is too much, you can modify this just doing this on your back. So the twisting is like a more kind of advanced level of the thing, and you can simplify it by just being on your back too. Okay, come back onto your left side. Pause for a moment. And let's return to where we began the whole thing, which was to look over your left shoulder. So you look over your left shoulder, you roll a little bit, look over your left shoulder and see if anything has changed here in how you sense the movement, what you do with your sternum. Okay. And we'll do one more thing on your side, but first just wait, rest for a moment, rest your attention. Notice what you see with your eyes. And very slowly move your right shoulder a little bit forward and a little bit backwards. And you can do this movement with your shoulder, and then you can allow the rest of yourself to respond. so that as you roll forward, your pelvis can move forward. As you roll back, your pelvis can roll back. And play with, as the next time you go backwards, look down towards your knees with your head and eyes. And then as you roll forwards, look a little bit up towards the wall above your head. And you can feel as you bring in your head and eyes in this way with the rolling, that there's an organization of your pelvis. When you look down towards your knees and you roll a little back, you could tuck your tail a little bit. And then when you roll forward and you look towards the wall above your head, you could lift your tail a little bit, sort of more in the direction of arching your back. So this is this kind of winding into this flexor contraction in the front, and then an unwinding when you go onto your side and you look up a little bit. And up means towards the wall above your head. Yeah. And then you could, if you would like, if this feels good to you, you could bring in the movement of looking over your left shoulder, so that as you roll forward and your shoulder goes forward and you look over your left shoulder, it's kind of like looking over your left shoulder and taking your back of your head backwards. So you look over your left shoulder, but you also look a little bit kind of diagonally upwards towards the wall back there. Yeah. So that when you look over your shoulder, you're actually taking your belly forward. You're actually lifting your tail a little bit. That's it. That's it. Okay. And then come onto your back and rest on your back. And notice what you are aware of as you rest here. And so far in the lesson, have there been moments when you've done something different than I've asked, or modified something, and where you had some compassion for yourself in where you were meeting your own needs, your own curiosity? And if you haven't done that yet, then I encourage you to do that in the next parts. Just really listening and caring for where you're at and what variations you want to do, what variations you don't want to do. And roll your head a little bit here. So we've worked with the one side. We will get to your other side next, but just notice, are you aware of any differences in the feeling of rolling your head? Okay. And then go ahead and roll onto your other side. Put some padding under your head if you like. And begin this movement of looking over your right shoulder. So the beginning of it. And you have some ideas now about it, right? You have some sense that you would need to roll a little forward. Your left shoulder would come a little forward in order for you to look over your shoulder. And what happens to your back and what happens to your belly? That's it. Let's play with this idea. So this is from one of the lessons last week around unwinding the body pattern of anxiety. So we'll just play with it a little bit here. So do a movement where you tuck your tail a little bit and you take the middle of your back backwards and you kind of do this folding, rounding shape a little bit, just a little bit. Now from here, try to look over your right shoulder while you keep this shape. Do you feel how it limits it? Just maybe once or twice so you can feel, okay, if I'm contracting my abdomen, my tail is tucked, my chest is folded, it's a one kind of a sensation. And now let that go and do the movement again where you really feel that your belly comes more forward. And you could even take the back of your head a little backwards so that you lengthen in the front of yourself. Okay. And then stay on your side, rest for a moment. Notice what you see here being on this side. What catches your eye? And then think about bringing your left hand to your face somewhere without actually doing it. So just think that in a moment, you'll bring your left hand to your face. And when you think of that, you could sense where your left hand is right now, where it's resting. And where do you feel the initiation or the beginning of the movement as you begin to bring your left hand to your face, to the left side of your face? How does that happen? What's that process? And then once you get there, where does your hand land? And how does your hand feel your face? And how does your face feel your hand? Just taking your time with that. Maybe finding like, okay, yeah, that feels nice, but it would feel even more nice if it was a little more here. Adjust it a little bit. Or maybe do you have too much under your head or not enough under your head? And so each of these steps that we're layering on, you can take as much time with the earlier steps. And if it gets too advanced in the complexity of the variations, then you just go back to the earlier ones, even just to the thought of it. So then begin to roll a little bit with your hand attached to your face. So you'll have start with your hand on the left side of your face and roll to face a little bit towards the ceiling with your hand and head and arm. Notice what you do with your elbow and shoulder. And each time you come back, experiment with having your hand in a different place. And just sensing how it is to do on this side. Yeah, your chin, your mouth, feeling the movement of your elbow. And also feeling, does your pelvis move? Can you allow your pelvis to move? And then bring your hand to the right side of your face and feel how that changes. It really changes the whole shape of the movement and what happens in your spine. Looking for that path of ease and even the angle, the trajectory. So as you roll your head like this, what's the movement of your elbow through space? Does it make a difference for you if you kind of look a little bit more upwards or downwards as you do it? Or what's the path for you? And then you could bring your hand to your forehead, your elbow towards the ceiling, and roll your head this way. And in this situation, it's the most open in your chest compared to the others, but we're going to avoid the stretching, avoid any pulling anywhere. Maybe you reduce what you have under your head so that your head is more free to roll. That feeling of the weight of your elbow coming back and your shoulder sliding over your ribs some. And then go ahead and come onto your back and rest for a moment. And just notice what you're aware of as you rest. And let's begin the exploration of the sternum here on your back. So finding your sternum again, finding some places where your ribs meet your sternum, and playing with this idea of sliding your sternum a little bit to your left. And just noticing one place, do it a few times, and then you go to the next place and notice, is it a little easier here? Or also you could notice when you take it to the left, is it easier to take it a little bit to the left and up or to the left and down? So is it straight to the left, or is there a little bit of a particular directionality to it? And go to the next spot. So little by little, just encouraging the softening of your sternum. And if any of this ever feels not good, then you can rest for parts. You can imagine parts. You can imagine someone else doing this to you if that feels better to you. Notice what your head does, how it responds. Yeah, and then if you're curious to go onto your side and to be in the twisted position to continue this exploration, go ahead and do that. So you would lie on your right side and roll your face towards the ceiling, and so you'd be in a more twisted position, and you could continue this sliding of your sternum to the left, different places. And notice what your head does. Notice what you see. And can you have this exploration going on in sensation and also have some awareness of the room that you're in at the same time? All right. And now, so you're lying on your right side, perhaps, and you now take your left arm, bring it over the top of your head so that you hold somewhere near your right ear, and play with sliding the back of your head on the floor. So your face will stay oriented towards the ceiling the whole time, and you're sliding, translating the back of your head over to the left. So it means you'll need to bend with your ribs on the left, and you can use your right hand to just feel what happens to your chest as you do this, what happens to your sternum. Really softening where you can soften and not pushing. Just curious, like, what do you do with your pelvis and your belly? And then switch arms. So bring your right arm over the top of your head and feel, how is it to slide your head to the right with your face towards the ceiling, if that's possible and comfortable for you. And you could do this just on your back if you need to. And with your left hand, feeling your ribs, feeling your sternum and the different shape that's made. Nice. And then bring your arms down along your sides. Stay in this twisted position if it's comfortable for you. And a little bit slide one hand down towards your feet, your other hand down towards your feet, letting your head and neck respond in the way that they would like, and organizing the movement from the middle. This bending in the middle of your spine and the ribs. Maybe you could even look towards one hand, towards the other hand, if that feels comfortable. And then come back onto your side. Rest on your side for a moment. Notice your breathing. Return to doing nothing. And then a little bit, move a very tiny bit, your left shoulder a little forward as if you were going to roll towards your belly, and a little back as if you were going to roll towards your back, and just let the rest of yourself respond. So there's this initiation from your shoulder, sliding forward and back, and you let your spine respond, let your head respond, and your pelvis respond. And then the next time that you take your shoulder back, look down a little bit towards your knees. And then when you take your shoulder forward, look up a little bit towards the wall above your head. So you fold yourself a little bit as you roll back, and then you extend yourself a little bit as you roll forward. And then the next time you roll forward and you extend yourself, then look over your right shoulder. So you look over your shoulder as you take the back of your head a little bit backwards, and see how that is now. And what you do with your sternum, what you do with your belly. Nice. And then come all the way onto your back and rest on your back. And take a moment to sense what you're aware of now. And what's it like to roll your head now? And how are you lying on the floor now? When you're ready, you can transition to one side or the other, and then come to sit and come to stand. And then take a moment to just notice when you first stand, the feeling of standing and what you're curious about now, what you see now, how it is to look around to meet your environment now, and what's the kind of percentage or the distribution of attention inward and outward. So inside of yourself, your sensations, what you're feeling, your thinking, and then this awareness of your environment, the space that you're in, and what you see, what you hear, your sense of your feet on the ground. Walk around a little bit and notice what you are aware of. Notice what you notice. You can play with looking around yourself, turning around yourself if you haven't already, comparing what you notice now from before. And if you feel moved to write in the comments what you're noticing, a couple words about it, I'd be happy to hear the variety of our experience, and also happy to hear any questions. So as part of the 6-week series, we'll be working in different positions. So this lesson today and the mini lesson I taught yesterday were on the side, but we will be on the side, on the back, on the belly, sitting and standing, and also looking a little bit in the beginning of the series, also looking at like some ergonomic stuff around, we're so much like Zoom focused and computer. So how to have some ideas to make that easier on us. And also, in addition to the weekly classes, there'll be these mini lessons sprinkled throughout, shorter lessons, Feldenkrais and organic intelligence practices that will help kind of sustain and build your practice muscles in between the longer classes. And then also, you'll have 2 months of access to Movement and Creativity Library, where there's a lot of other lessons you can explore. And we're going to have 2 guest teacher workshops. So Eleanor Silverstein, who's a Feldenkrais teacher who is an expert in the vagus nerve, is going to come support us in really understanding why the freeing up this path, these connections around the head and neck actually affect our vagus nerve system, And she's super inspiring, and I'm really excited to have her. And then Steve Hoskinson, who's the founder of Organic Intelligence, which is the other practice I do, is going to come teach something around the foundation of safety being this orienting architecture, which is the head and neck. And we'll be doing lessons that are focusing in this area like we did today, but we'll also be doing other lessons that focus on other areas of the body and that sort of indirectly influence the neck and shoulders too. So I'm enjoying seeing some of the comments in the corner of my peripheral vision, and I want to read some of them. I love the encouragement to truly listen to what feels right personally from moment to moment. And that is like the thing that I want to underline, and that I will be underlining, and I'm glad that you feel that. Your head wants to go up when you turn. Cool. And thank you very much for an ability to understand your own body. Lovely. Someone is relaxed and feels her lips. A lot more flexible in her shoulder girdle. Chest more open. Notice the curves in the low back and neck. Yeah. And I actually, so full disclosure is that today I was like, I had like childcare stuff to figure out in the morning. I didn't get to do everything I needed to do. And then I was like on my mom's couch, and I was doing the like sending out the login email, and I was like in this, laptop position. And when I went to do prep the lesson, my gaze was down. I felt heavy. Really, my organization was this downward thing. And if I were to try to like fix or correct, that just wouldn't work. And at the end of the lesson, and even now after teaching it and imagining as I was teaching, this whole world up here is feeling like so much more available, and I feel so much more emotionally better. More balanced experience of inner and outer world that feels lighter and brighter. A more easeful relationship with gravity. Super. Everything feels more in 3D and sensual. So that is so lovely. And this is one other thing I was thinking about is I have a Feldenkrais teacher, Arlen Zones, that says, once it's free, give it a job. So once there's this new freedom, if you are experiencing freedom, I thought I saw somebody say they were also aware of stiffness. I didn't get to it, but if you're aware of stiffness, sometimes it can mean now you're aware of what you weren't aware of before. Sometimes it could mean maybe you did a little bit too much, and maybe there's somewhere in between also. But in terms of if you are feeling, my neck feels beautifully integrated into my spine. So lovely. So if there is this experience of new freedom, then use it. So instead of just like, okay, I feel free and great, now let me go back to my computer, which is some of what I'm going to do today too. But to also use it to like, okay, use it so that I can actually see out that skylight and benefit from taking in the little quivering leaves and the wind and the color of the sky, like that I can actually use that ability to see and actually see and take in the benefit of my nervous system regulating from being in this like feedback loop with my environment. So I encourage you, if you can go out for a walk now and look around and enjoy what you see. Love the sensation in the front of my body, sternum, moving differently from my back in the spine, feeling the space and freedom of the chest cavity. My neck feels beautifully integrated. Oh, I already read that one. Okay. Thank you for this lovely and multifaceted exploration. I love the emphasis on curiosity, so natural for children, but often suppressed in adults. Yeah, so there's this interesting dance in being instructed with anything, right? Where as children, the sort of ideal thing, I think, is like creating an environment. Like in Montessori, they talk about creating the prepared environment. So then the children can naturally, I'm interested in this, and oh, I'm interested in that. And they can go and be in relationship with the environment in an organic, curiosity-driven way. So then how do we do that? How do we create those situations as adults? And also, like, if we're all, you know, like this, how do we get curious and how do we free? You can do it in different ways, and you can like try to, like take your shoulders down and back, and do things like that. But that's like really getting at this level of kind of a fixing thing, right? So if we can wake up our natural curiosity inside of the structure of lessons that are inviting also these fundamental patterns to unwind on their own, then that's the best. That's the best, because then you can take that curiosity and extend it to anything. Extend it to how you feel, like this feeling of I'm interested in this thing that's happening on the computer, but I'm actually kind of more interested. I feel a stronger pull towards this other direction, towards getting outside or whatever. Speaking of, we're at 2:00 and I want to not undo everything that you just did by keeping you here. But there's like a lot of comments that I have not gotten to. Wonderful feeling open everywhere, broadened into being in my space and the world. Wow. Okay, so I need to like take in all these comments. And if I didn't get to anything like a question, you feel free to email me. The early bird deadline for the 6-week series is today. It's the regular price is $300, but the early bird is $200, and then student rate is $150. And I do have some partial scholarships for people that can't afford it. And it comes with 2 months of Movement and Creativity Library. I think I said that. All the recordings you can keep. If you can't come live, you can do it via recordings. People are doing that. And okay, I'll read this one. In the beginning, my intention was very inward and gaze up and to the right. It seemed that I was trying to get away from outside stimulation. When the lesson was over, I was much readier to look around and enjoy the environment. Awesome. So we will be weaving together this relationship of our internal experience to our relationship to the environment in different ways. And happy that you're here, and thank you. And yeah, hope to see you next week or some other time.